everyone. Welcome to Finding the Inner Strength podcast with me, Cheryl. Welcome. Welcome to episode 11. And I have a tiny little following now, which I kind of like. It's nice. It's a nice way of me just to share my thoughts and help you realize that you're not alone. And sometimes we feel like that. And I like just sharing kind of what's going through my brain and kind of my knowledge on and understandings of things. Um, so I thank you to the few that are already following me and listening, and few of you guys give me feedback, which is really nice. And because feedback's awesome, because I do like talking into the unknown, the dark abyss, and it's kind of nice to hear where people can kind of relate to where I'm coming from on things. So for today's episode, we're going to take a pause on um, what the last couple of episodes were, which is kind of tapping into my knowledge and understanding of different styles of yoga, how I like to approach it. But today is going to kind of tap into my current state of mind, my mental health, and share it with you because I think a lot of us um, are feeling a little bit of being overwhelmed, anxious, especially us Canadians. And I just wanted to share where I'm at right now. And maybe it'll start a conversation um, between us. Maybe it'll help you realize that you aren't alone, and or it may make you realize you think I'm crackers. Just a little bit different, which I totally embrace because which has been hard when I'm starting to embrace who I am as an individual, as a person, and just accepting it and loving um, as much of it as I can on most given days. So we're around February 2025. Well, it is February 2025 right now. And I know mm, right now there's a lot of instability, a lot of unknown within our countries, especially US, Canada, but there's more places around the world with this instability, uncertainty. And I'm just going to talk from how I'm processing all of it and give you a little bit of a idea of where my struggles are, supports on dealing with the kind of unknown. So my husband and I right now are down in the United States. We've been down here since um, we crossed the border November 17th, 2024. This is our second year coming down to the southern states for winter. I'm very blessed that we have this opportunity to take our home and travel to where it is warmer. It is easier for him and myself on our mental health uh, to come where it's warmer. Also, for my physical health, I do have Raynaud's, so which affects the circulation, especially in the fingers and toes. So we embraced this opportunity to come down to the southern states. So we basically have hung out this year, this winter in Arizona, and are now in California. And we're at a beautiful, beautiful park right now. Um, Close to Niland, California, by the Salton Sea. We're a little bit of ways from, like, I can see the Salton Sea from my window, and desert climate, some palm trees here at the park, beautiful mountains right by us that if we want to go hiking. Um, my husband and I love being active as much as possible. And we have taken this month and last month to be a reset for ourselves physically and mentally. We've been kind of scattered and on the go since um, I would say even before April 2024. April 2024, which was last year, we made our way back from the States into Canada and settled into a friend's property where they've been amazing. And that's our residence where we go. Um, this year is definitely different to a point, as you all know, with where politics are going. Um, the division between our two countries, Canada and the United States. But I want to emphasize um, where we have been personally down here for the last 2.5 months, technically 2 months or 2.5 months. December, we weren't really in the States because we traveled back to Canada for Christmas and went to the Netherlands to have some amazing time with some friends like in for their wedding and just experiencing quite an amazing time. But from like say most half end of November and also December, January, February, we have been down in the States, Arizona and California for the most part. And as a Canadian down in the States right now, um, I can assure, I guess I can say from my experience, the Americans, you guys have been amazing down here. And there's such a mixture of us between Canadians and Americans, especially in these RV resorts that there's quite a few snowbirds that come down, people traveling, and I can probably say already on my two hands, hearing or experience someone apologizing for what's happening to the Canadians um, in regards to their government, the American USA government. And there's no hostility down here. There's friendships, there's support and love. Now, don't get me wrong. There's our people that have their opinions, just like we do in Canada. But being down here away from my country, it's honestly the feeling of back of when 9/11 happened. So I remember when 9/11 happened. My son was only about 4 months old. That day, I had to drive my husband to the base, the military base in Edmonton, and then informed that we didn't know when he would be able to come home because of the uncertainty of the security and safety of not just the United States, but Canada. And it was like you get sucked in to the news, media. And at that point, there, like when you think about this, this is back in 2001, there wasn't a lot of social media. This was all television, getting your information on what was happening and just watching the progression of the towers in New York and the Pentagon and then the other aircraft that unfortunately crashed with innocent people on it. Um, and unfortunately, I cannot remember the location of that particular aircraft. I feel guilty not knowing it right now, but I'm being honest. Um, but the last month and a bit with the new administration here in the United States, watching the news, watching what is transpiring, watching and hearing reaction back home as a nation. And I won't get into my views on government, as in like who I support, who I don't support, but I can tell you my stress level and my anxiety is amplified, and I recognize it, and it's something my husband and I are able to talk about, and I trust him in his understanding of politics, um, government, world issues because of his background in the military, and he is actually quite an intelligent human being and loving human being, and but when it comes to this stuff, I I love to hear his take on things because he can ground me, and we can talk these things out and realize what, or kind of work together and what can help each other on being away from home right now. And some of you may be like, well, just head home. And I get it, but we are in our home where there's no snow. And to pull our home back to Canada, um, we want to do it as safely as possible. We're not worried about staying down here until our expected return into Canada, which we have another 2.5 months, I would say, to be in the States, but that also gives us time to make our way back to Canada. Um, but I guess it's the feeling I have is how I felt during 9/11. And knowing how media, news, and now the other level of social media can contribute to that anxiety and stress, fear, um, getting sucked into it, which is so easy. Um, and trying to balance it with day to day life. And oh, if you heard that clunk, that was my dog. But, anyways, I wanted to, like, we might not even come back to the United States for next year. And when some Americans are asking us if we're returning, we've come to the conclusion we probably won't come back next year, just with the unknown right now. Unknown politically, unknown financially, where our Canadian dollar is, but also where our Canadian government is in stability. Um, we'll probably look at different avenues on if we stay in Canada next winter or if we just decide to go explore different parts of this beautiful planet that we have. Um, it gets so heavy that I question. I'm that bad friend that I talked about a few episodes ago. My mind starts to shut down and not understand on how to filter out that bad friend and all the negative commentary in my head um, is it's been amplified this last week. There was also a full moon last week, but um, I struggle with the uh, the fear of something happening. And that's why I am so blessed and happy that I have my husband to talk these things out and understand. We both chose not to watch as much news in the next little while. And it's not to block out what's happening, it's the fact that it's so soul sucking, all the negativity, that we want to focus on ourselves physically and mentally and make decisions for what's best for us without being influenced by aspects on the television, live streaming, social media that will, um, without proper research on where the information's coming from. And I think that's important. It's very easy for us to open our Facebook or Instagram, um, I'll say TikTok, but I'm not on TikTok. That's one I chose not to because I am a type of personality that it's hard for me to disconnect from social media if there's too much of it, or even like, little games on the phone. I just get sucked into all that. I have the other two still, and I also have YouTube, because I use those for my business. So, and also with Facebook and Instagram, staying in connection with friends and family and letting people know where we're at. Um, and I wish there was a way, if anyone knows, uh, turning off the articles coming through those apps, like social, like things that you're not even part of. It's just the algorithm and it just taps things in. Um, but I wanted to let you know that you're not alone on how you're feeling. And I think one of the things that really bothered me this week, and I am a hockey lover. I love my Edmonton Oilers. Watched my kids playing hockey and ringette growing up. And I love watching sports, like when countries come together to play. And I understand as Canadians, we are livid with what things are being said south of our border with the government here. But I do not agree booing at their anthem. Those players, those athletes do not define their government, or their government does not define them. And from my experience down here with, I would say, 99% of the Americans that we have met and have had the pleasure to spend time with down here do not share the same views as their government, or did not realize, unfortunately, that the new administration was going to go down this hole. I think as Canadians and as human beings, we are much better than this. And the people that are booing are setting a reflection, or that the rest of us are like that. And if you look as a Canadian and how we're feeling about the United States right now, you got to understand that their government is not a reflection on a good chunk of their population. I said years ago, someone had asked me, when my husband would be going on tour, so a military tour. So he's done Kosovo and he's done tours to Afghanistan. And people like, oh, that's not right. We're sending our men and women to a country that has nothing to do with us. And I remember saying to people, I said, imagine if the day came something happened to Canada and the rest of the world turned their backs on us because we never lent a hand to them. And people were and are convinced it would never happen to our country. And I'm not saying that's what's happening, but that's the fear that's being amplified, and it could possibly happen economically, militarily. Um, and I think that you have to understand that things can happen anywhere. But if we keep feeding into the fear and turning negative and mean against other human beings just because of where they're from, it's a losing battle. It is a losing battle. And I embrace the people that I have met while I am down here. And I feel for them, and I feel for us as Canadians. It's funny because I never thought I'd see this or hear it. I really didn't. Um, some of us that are more in tune with politics and maybe are in the nitty gritty might have seen this coming now or down the road. But the stronger we are and united as humans, as creatures on this planet, part of nature, we will stand bigger and greater against the people who think they deserve to be in power and control everything. It's I want you to think of that. I want you to think the moment a negative thing happens or you have that negative thought towards someone or somewhere because of an incident that happened with their government or military or anything like right or remember that is not everyone. And it's hard to have the courage to speak up. And as someone, I'm very much an empath. And when I'm around negativity, it drains me so quickly. It drains me. The other day, I was at the pool here at the resort that we're at, and there was a group of people in the water. And it was just, and they were, I get it, they were having fun, but it's a lot of negative talk. And I was just trying to lay there and just enjoy the sun, do some research on my phone. So I finished my book, so I didn't have a book to read at that moment. And I realized that their energy, I was picking up on it. Anytime I'm around someone who is negative, it sucks the life out of me, is what it feels like. But what was yesterday, so that was 2 days ago. Yesterday, I had a really rough day. Just heavy, felt lost, a little bit of fear. The bad friend was like telling me, um, well, because of social media and the news, um, the fear of what's going to happen. Then I started questioning choices. Then I started questioning my ability to be productive and share my teachings and education with people. And it was just like this roller coaster, a roller coaster. This bad friend was just on fire yesterday. And then my husband came home and I was like, it's like I said, like, I need to talk. Like he was getting ready to go somewhere. And we sat down and just talked on how we both felt on what's going on and having that person to talk about, taking out, I'm not saying to ignore the negative, it's how we receive that negative and allow it to affect us. Do you get sucked into it and turn and just adapt to that energy, to that environment? Or do you stick true to your conviction and what you believe in and what you want out of life? And I hope that makes sense because I have laughs every day. I am realistic on what's happening on our planet. But again, it's a planet, it's one. And for some reason, historically, eh, we are being controlled by a fear of a few, a good handful of people that want to take basically control everything. Um, and I think another thing to think about is educate yourself. Like I said, don't take one source, look into it. Don't get pulled into the negative conversations. I have a hard time with that one when I'm with some people that can be just quite negative and um, entitled. And then I start noticing the heaviness, and I just like, okay, I need to step away because this does not work for me. I do not need this in my life. I do not. I do not need to um, allow their actions and words to fully affect me. And I say that because it will still affect you. Does still affect me, but it's how I deal with it, how I address it, And so right now, no news. And I think one of the things I'm going to try to do, adding into my weekly sharing, is positive news, positive, happy news, because there's so much heaviness. And I'm trying to remember, um, oh, what's his name? The actor from The Office. And then he was in Jack Ryan. Come on, I know my daughter's just shaking her head at me right now. She's like, Mom, you should know this. Like, so I want to say, yeah, I'm looking it up because I'm major brain fart right now. Oh, John Krasinski. If I remember correctly, he might still have, but during COVID, had a YouTube channel of daily happy news because there was just so much happiness. So I'm going to invite you. I'm going to share one a week starting next week. But I invite you at least once a week or even daily, look up good news. Look up something that uplifts you. Think of the chicken soup books. They were my faves when I was younger, reading those and just people's experiences and love and support, friendship, family, kindness. I think it's important. And I just want to let you know you're not alone. You're not alone. But let's create this community of support, kindness, non judgmental to people um, that are from a country that unfortunately their government is giving them a bad rap. Please, during sporting events, I know not all of us agree with the national anthem being represented at these, but please don't boo these people, their anthem. It's it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. And I think you need to, if you think you have a right to do that, maybe take a step back and take a look at yourself. Maybe you have things going on that think maybe that feeding of negativity on someone else makes you feel better because there's something that you're lacking or missing. So there you go. So find some happy, good news daily or at least once a week. Walk away from that negativity. Don't judge people because of what country they're from or nationality they are. And be kind and love each other. And I don't mean to go and hug every single person you walk by, but we all have a story. We all have something going on. And if you feel like you have to be negative towards somebody else or someone else's nationality, take a step back, take a look at yourself, and figure out why you feel like you need to do that. So thank you for joining me for episode 11. Um, Next week, I will dig a little bit more into the yoga background. Like I said, episode 10 was on Hatha and Yin. Next week, I'll tap into, I don't think I talked about somatics last week. I should take a look back on what I talked about, and somatics and vinyasa. So have a great day, great week, great month. Be kind to yourself and others. Give people hugs, and I will